Okay, welcome everybody to today's Empowered Women's Coaching Call. My name is Kira Love and I have the beautiful Marina Perry with us today. Welcome to our Empowered Calls.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. It's a bit ridiculous how jazzed I am about it all. I think it's because I love deep diving with like-minded people, so
Absolutely.
It's a bliss bubble for me.
Your connection is a little bit unstable again, so I'm not sure if you want to switch it.
Do you want me to jump onto 4G?
Yeah, maybe, and then we'll get started. Yeah, I'll do the housekeeping stuff and get that out of the way while you switch your network. As always, I just want to let you guys know that you can join our Empowered Women's group in the link in the description. You can also catch up on past YouTube recordings, and you'll also be able to grab this one off the YouTube in the link. And I also want to announce last week's winner. Thank you so much, Amanda Preston, for sharing your love and this message of empowering women. So I'm going to send out some goodies, including an empowered shaker and these super attractor cards and some other little things out to you. And I'm going to run this competition again. So if you would like to be in the draw to win a little Empowered Women's goodie pack, then all you need to do is take a screenshot or a recording and share whether it's part of our message or, part of what Marina's talking about today on your social channels, and tag both of us in. Marina, what's your Instagram handle so that people can find you and follow you now?
Yes, it's I am, and then Marina Perry, just MARINA PERRY. Marina, like where the boats go, spelled the same.
Perfect. Awesome. So these calls are purely add value, and we really want to be able to reach as many women as we can, especially coming up to the new year. Like, this is a really crucial transitional time, and just if you can help us get the message out by sharing and tagging, we would so appreciate that. So let's get started. So I'm so excited to, finally really connect with you, Marina. You are a woman of many, many talents, and you will be able to describe and go into depth more, but you are a whole womanhood coach. I love that description. That's really beautiful. You're an author, you have a podcast, you speak on podcasts, you are the CEO of Pure Health Clubs. Is that correct? Yes, amongst many other things. So I thought maybe what we could do is just start out by you sharing what your mission is and how did you come to this place? Because usually there's kind of a lead up to why we end up doing what it is that we do so passionately.
Yes. So thank you for that. And it can be a bit confusing for people. And as a business coach, I'm very pro niching. Niche. And then there's me, blah, 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 all over the place. And, it kind of actually perfectly illustrates what I like to do through the whole womanhood and self-sovereignty coaching, because we get to be it all. I'm a big believer in that. We get to be it all because we are it all. So I am more, and I do have many facets to call work in the world. Whether that's starting businesses or helping people start business, or whether it's, deep diving into what we're going to talk about today, programming, which truly underpins it all. It's all joy for me. And ultimately, it's actually all the same thing, which is just the expansion of us into our wholeness. So some of us, not some of us, all of us on some level have pinned that down. And my job, my work in the world, the gift that I get to be in is in the journeying with people to their wholeness. And so I'm so grateful for it. And I'm grateful to the younger versions of me who kept course correcting and course directing, because some days I do look at it and go, wow, how? And yet I know that it was a day by day, month by month, year by year process. And I also know it certainly wasn't like this, which leads me to kind of why I particularly now focus on the coaching and the inner work, because for a long part of my life, I was being quote unquote successful and very powerful, running to the programming that I was raised on, which I know we're going to dive into, so I won't spend too long on it right now. But it wasn't until really my early to mid 30s that I came to an awareness that the way I was being in the world might have ticked the boxes by the measure of the people around me or society at large. But it actually was crippling and stifling and leaving dead very important parts of myself. And so I had this, I suppose everybody, well, not everybody, but many people in their lives have what we call the big breakdowns or the breakthroughs ultimately. And that kind of occurred for me with a divorce and massive upheaval. And that de-armoring was the greatest gift of my life, because it really did spiral me into a deeper awareness and connection with myself, which is where we need to start, but we don't. So in doing that, I kind of moved away from health and fitness, and I moved away from nutrition, and I still do business coaching because it's an expression into the world. And obviously health is so important, so it's still foundational, but the real work is in this whole womanhood piece and the self-sovereignty piece. And it's joy to talk about it, and it's joy to work with people towards it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I completely resonate with your story, because, I had been on that journey of really becoming aware of my conditioning and the things that were really limiting me, and how many frameworks I had, and, belief systems that weren't serving me. So I really was on that journey already, and I'd done a lot of work, but there was still this real gap, I guess. And going through a divorce and doing all that in the past 12 months as well, I can honestly say that I have never been so free and happy and so in touch with who I am, and to genuinely be able to say that I love myself now. And it took all of that destruction to get to that place, even though I was on that journey. And hopefully that doesn't have to happen for everyone, but I can say I'm grateful for it all.
I would actually say in some ways I hope it does, because the conditioning that we have from childhood, and we all have it, there is no human immune to it. And I spend a lot of time teaching people why we're all conditioned, why it's essential for us to be conditioned the way we're conditioned, right? Like, it's not, you didn't do it wrong to be conditioned. That's part of living as a human in the world at large. But if we're lucky enough to get cracked open like that, because most people will stay complacent, most people will stay faux happy, I like to call it, which is happy enough. It's the enough thing, like, he's good enough, the work is good enough. I have enough energy. It's like this, we obviously don't feel enough yet. We kind of allow things to just be enough. And it is a form of settling, but it's a safety settling. And the only thing I'd add to what you said, Kara, because it's been a big aha for me in the last couple of years, and it's really changed the place and space that I coach from, is this self-love movement. Whilst unbelievably important, and 5 years ago I started running love yourself retreats in Bali, so I was on it too. It misleads us, because we've actually always loved ourselves. In fact, everything we do is an act of love for ourselves, whether that's an eating disorder, whether that's an addiction, whether that's a really strong sabotage pattern. It's literally an act of love, because it coded in your system as some form of survival. And you're a parent, I'm a parent, we can talk about what do we most want for our kids in the world, and we'll say, oh, for them to be happy. But if we say, yeah, but what's even more important than that? What's the highest level of love? And anyone with a newborn will straight away say, keep this thing alive. Like, keeping something you love alive is the foundational form of love. And we have those codes in us that are there to keep us alive, straight up, nothing else, not happy, not expanded, but alive. And if we don't go in and look at them, then we will stay alive, but we won't be enlivened or expanded or, blissed out.
You just helped me realize something. It's a better way to explain it would be that I'm at peace with myself. I've never felt at peace or at ease with myself like I do now, is probably a much better way to describe it. And it's an internal freedom that I've never experienced before. And it's like breathing for the first time, finally getting to take a big, deep breath. And I had so many structures and frameworks for so long, and I know you're going to talk about this, but I really identified as a perfectionist for so long. And so, the holding on that requires being a perfectionist, there was a lot of struggle in that. There was a lot of many gifts as well come with that. But the letting go and the freedom and the flexibility and the flow, it's just, and I just feel so much more empowered in my feminine grace around all of it. And it's just a much more peaceful. Peace and ease are better words to describe it.
Where it's at, for sure.
Yeah.
And I like to say that I don't help people love themselves. I help them love themselves more effectively in alignment with their highest good, because, we're all doing great. And truly, if anyone is watching this on a phone or a computer, we're so blessed. We technically have no right to be stressed, right? In the scheme of things, in the greater, world and the reality at large. But But yet that doesn't mean that we don't also get to take what's on offer, which is ease and peace and really like self-celebration and a willingness to just have the most extravagantly joy-filled life. And that's going to look different for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So let's dive into it then. Today we're going to be talking about what is programming and why it's important that everyone does their inner work and how you can break free of the ones that are not serving you and helping you to align really with your greatness. And so I might just hand it over to you to dive into that.
Amazing. So the thing about programming or personal development work, after 20 years in health and fitness, I found people are very keen to come and spend time, energy, and money working their butt or their abs or their arms. And then you say to them, hey, why don't you come along to our mindset mastery workshop? Woo! And they run for the hills because there's this terror that what they'll find in there they won't like, or they'll be confused, or they're broken, or there'll be judgment, because there is judgment of ourselves.
You know what's funny about that though? I find it the opposite for me personally. I got to a point where I couldn't even stand myself anymore, that I'm like, there's no other option. I need to do the work. I'm like, bring me the work. I want to master my mind.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's like a flick. As soon as you go in there and you lift the lid and you go, oh my gosh, it's actually amazing. And and this is kind of what I wanted to cover today, so that people can go, oh, we're actually all wired like this. I want to talk about things that they're afraid they're going to find and realize, yes, you're going to find that, but everyone has it. Not a single soul. I mean, I haven't sat with a soul and dived deep and not found these as commonalities. We're united in the ways that we limit ourselves, that we create our own suffering. So the reason I say that though is that it's the work that underpins all the work. So if you're struggling, or you've got a sabotage pattern around health, or you're struggling, or you've got like a block in your relationship or with money, it's got nothing to do with what you're doing in the world out there. It's all got to do with the coding that's allowed in your subconscious, paradigm. So quite simply put, because I like things to be really simple so people can go, I get it. That makes sense. When we're born as humans, we come out of our mamas and we are not good to go. We're not like a cult, or as in C-O-L-T, cult as in horse cult, not cult as in the other kind of cult. We actually are born into cults, let's be honest, because we're programmed from day one. But the old, animal analogy is that they come out of their mums, they stand up, they go feed themselves, and if mum died, it'd be tragic, but it wouldn't be the end of their lives. For us as humans, if we were left without food or sustenance or affection even, we will not last. So we are relationally dependent mammals, which means that our survival is dependent on another person providing for us. So we just have to accept that, regardless of how amazing we might want to be in the world, in this skin suit, we're straight up, first and foremost, humans. So if we can accept that, what we also need to come to terms with is that in our early formative years, we will make rules which will form the codes, if you will, of how it is quick, easiest, and safest for us to get the affection and approval of those around us. Now, inside of a family unit that values quietness, and stillness and reflection, then maybe a really loud, bubbly child will be told to be quiet, to sit down, to zip it. And then likewise, in a different family that values, expression and being seen and being loud, that same child would be revered and applauded for it. So there's literally no right or wrong except the rules that we make for rightness. And it's simply, if I be this way, if I express this part of me, you will approve of me, you will feed me, clothe me, care for me, and I will stay alive. So it is an act of love when we collect up these codes, because it's like, okay, got it. If I do this, I stay in the game. Excellent. The issue is that might have been one instance, and it might have been run through a filter that was already loaded with some paradigms and some codings. So you kind of viewed it incorrectly, or in a way that already self-served an existing rule. And we simply stack these rules. And in doing so, we ultimately kind of take this entire life force that we have to offer the world, and we block it down until we have the splinter coming through. So I'm happy to share, a personal perspective from my upbringing, because I don't know about you, Kira, but the work I do, people often think, personal development is only for people with extreme traumas, or, I wasn't abused, so I should have nothing to complain about. And I work with a lot of people who go through some unspeakable traumas. But what I would like all of us to be more comfortable with is the idea that trauma isn't a competition. And if trauma is simply something that you code that means that you don't get to be your fullest and most pure whole expression of yourself, that's a trauma. So growing up, I have amazing parents, hand on heart, just divine, loving souls. But I heard messages in my household like, you know, you need to be as good as the boys, or as powerful as the boys. You're as smart as the boys. It's better to be smart than pretty. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. You can do anything. You're amazing. You can do anything. Which, I mean, hands up if you think my parents are amazing for all of those messages. Yes. And anyone who's a parent's like, well, I tell my kid that. Yes. And inside of my frame, my upbringing, my time, and the way my brain was worked, I had a very attractive, pretty sister, and I kept hearing it's better to be smart than pretty, than hearing, well, I'm smart. So I'm like, well, I'm the smart one and she's the pretty one. Hearing, you know, my dad be so proud when I competed with the boys in sport or competed with the boys in any realm. And when I was strong and capable, that was really revered. So the parts of me that maybe were vulnerable or quiet or reflective kind of just got slid back. And certainly the parts of me that needed to ask for help or have a big cry, or literally throw her hands up and go, I don't know how to do it. I didn't even meet her until my mid-30s. So all I did was go, okay, I get it. This is how I need to be loved and to be praised and to feel amazing. Applause, applause, applause from external sources. Which simply means that, you know, I'm married, my childhood sweetheart, who is a phenomenal man, but not someone who was stronger or more masculine than me, because I was essentially being a boy in a woman's body. And, you know, and so it continues. I started businesses. I was very powerful in that space. I was never good at asking for help, because for me, I coded being powerless as the way that I would be unsafe. So powerlessness became my crutch and my rod, and also my stick that I beat myself and other people with. So, you know, I'll do it. I'll do everything. Actually, put it down. I'll do it. Actually, don't worry. I'll do it. To the point where I was literally suffocating in my own quote unquote power. To the outside world, I looked like Wonder Woman. And to the inside, I was like, can someone just carry me for 1 second? And yet everywhere I looked, no one was strong enough, because I'd put myself so high up there that it was terrifying to put anything down. So we build these codes as active, so they're survival codes. We code them in early, and we do them to be in belonging, to remain safe. But then the way we stay safe, and the second real core need, is that we need to be right about them. So we go through life filtering everything that comes at us through this perspective of stay powerful, and everything's going past saying you don't need to be powerful, but that one thing that feeds that belief, that's the one I'll take in, or that's the way I'll view that issue. And we see this very easily with other people, right? We look at our friends and we're like, oh my gosh, why is she choosing to view it like that? Or why does he keep doing that? Because he needs to be right about the core beliefs that have kept him alive till now. Very simply. They're not your core beliefs, which is why you can see them and view them as crazy. But when they're your core beliefs, it's like, yeah. And so this is the programming that occurs to all of us. And until we go and like pull it apart and really look at it and go, actually, you know what? That does serve me in the instance where my life is under threat. Pretty much any other time, maybe I don't need to be that version of myself. Maybe there's another way I can explore being, which is what I've started to help the women through the whole womanhood piece, and people at large through the self-sovereignty piece, is what parts of me did I disown, distort, or leave dormant? And how do I bring life back to them? And how do I actually allow this fuller version of myself, which is, as you said earlier, the experience will be, I feel comfortable. Because you haven't wronged a part of yourself anymore. You've allowed that part that's a stuff up by the old rules to be present. And she's like, great, well, now I don't need to scratch at you every day and wish to be heard, because now you're letting me have the mic a little bit.
I think as well, what I would add is before becoming aware of my conditioning, I wasn't able to see how my conditioning was driving different behaviors. And I think when you have a set belief system that you hold on to so tightly, it's hard for you to see that there are other perspectives, there are other opinions. And, you know, it really starts to derail a lot of your relationships. It goes into career. Like, there was just a lot of friction in my relationships, especially. And the kind of the symptoms that come from having so many structures and frameworks is really just that rigidness of your mind. It's not being easily reasoned with. It's being taking, you know, I would take offense to things really easily. Now I don't take anything personally. You could say whatever you want to me now, and I just be like, babe, that's your shit. Like, it's just like.
No, and you're so right. And I'm so glad you raised that, because this is the thing. It's like, where it's ignorance is bliss in a way. but
Yeah.
it's also not, because like you say, you're basically, there's a resistance because you're resisting a part of yourself internally, but it shows up externally. So until it's insidious, and the phrase is you can't see the wood for the trees because you're so in it. It's like, yeah, but they are rude. And it's like, well, actually you're needing to see it that way until you step
Or
back.
maybe they just have different values. And I might just give like a example so that people can relate to what I'm saying. There was this one person in my friendship group that I love and value. She brings so much value. She's such a beautiful person inside and out, but I felt constant friction with her, and I constantly felt let down by her. And I got to the point of such frustration, and this is before all my personal development, but I constantly labeled her as a bad friend. And once I started to do personal development, I just realized we have very different values. Her version of being a good friend is completely different to mine. And in the end, I still value her as a person. But what I've come to realize is we're probably just misaligned to be very close friends, because some of those values are dear to me and some of them I've been able to let go. So there's no friction anymore because I'm not attached to her showing up in a certain way. Did we lose you?
I think everything you just said is what I would call the secondary stage of the process of self-sovereignty, because one is be willing to go in and see what's there. And then the biggest way to kind of even gain access to what you'll change is look at the patterns. So we're not always clear on our programming, but we can so often see a pattern. And it's the thing where we're like, oh, they did that again, or oh, this is happening again. It's all the things that are happening again. Those cycles of similarity are just you pressing play, play, play inside on the same pattern. You know, a big one for me was because I decided very young, I grew up in Papua New Guinea in my early really formative years. Both parents worked. We lived in a commune where there was a lot of, you know, security. And I just remember being alone a lot. My older sister didn't really want to play with me. And so I was alone a lot. Now, if you'd asked me 10 years ago about my childhood, being like, oh, it was amazing, it was sweet, no problems. Until I really got clear that in that moment, I was like, nobody's here, I got to take care of myself, which then becomes, which was fine because I'm really good at hanging out by myself, but it also becomes, there's no one here to take care of me. There's no one here to support me. So throughout the years, I would literally, even in the workplace, hire people completely incapable in the skill set that I needed them for, and then watch it. Now looking back, I like can watch it play out like a train wreck, right? To the point where I'm like, oh, they've really let me down, you know, oh, and all the stuff. And oh my gosh, and we talk about the external things, like I need to do this better or that better. But until you get clear on actually, Marina, until you address, sorry, I'm getting ramped up, you know, this fact that you think no one can support you, you're going to continually perpetuate it. Because this is the other lie, is we hear that we need to get better at manifesting. We don't need to get better at manifesting. We're powerful manifestors. The issue is we're manifesting based on the coding within us. So everything you have in your life is a pure manifestation of what you believe to be true and right and appropriate for you. This is the conditioning. If you want to create something different, you first of all need to pull up that stuff. And then, as you said, the benefits to doing the work in here is now I can be me, and I have compassion to allow you to be you. So this is where now your stuff doesn't trigger my stuff because I've actually taken all my triggers off. If I don't have triggers here, nothing you do can trigger me, which is where the ease and the peace flows from, because I'm good with me. Now I can lovingly hold space and go, okay, I can kind of see that's happening over there. Whether they work on it or not, who knows? Yeah. But yeah, the relating externally changes massively. It's a big piece, this programming. It's everything, because we build a prison. We do. Yes, we get offered these options through our family, society, church, schools, the media, but we choose it. And when we take control, or not control, when we take absolute accountability or absolute responsibility for the fact that we chose it, that can feel heavy initially, because it's like, oh, I've been doing this a while. But that's also the gift, and I get to re-choose.
Yeah, and that's empowering, right? It's taking your power back. Yeah.
It's your sovereignty. So for me, the self-sovereignty piece is, if this is my queendom, if I was a man, my kingdom, or my whatever, this is my sovereign space. Everything that goes down in here is my choosing. What rules do I want to run by? What elements of me do I want to, grow and foster and bring out into the world? If I give someone else sovereign rule of my being and I didn't even know it because I abdicated my throne, I can't really be angry at them for telling me to do it a certain way, because I wasn't using my power.
Absolutely. And so what other ways does programming affect relationships, sex, career, life, health, all of the areas.
Yeah. And you know, it's like the deeper we go into this rabbit hole, Kira, like strap in, right? Because
As I'm listing those things, it's all good. Yeah.
everything. But, and you know, this is where the other thing that I have a lot of people who go on big journeys with me over years, and you know, you've done this too. And we remove a layer and then we wonder, well, hang on, I did that work. Why is that still there? Because it is not just one thing and another thing and another thing. It's kind of like, if you can imagine, there's a jewel in the middle of those, you know, movies, and we've got all these laser beams going across and across. We might turn one laser beam off. There's still a shit ton of things to get through. So the other thing that happens is actually one collapses into the other. So as an example, this is a great example as to how our fears, our internal coded fears, and therefore our rules around survival, because fears are really just, be afraid of this, because if you stay afraid of this is how you most stay alive. So my powerlessness was, be afraid of losing power, because without power, you're dead. And, you know, there's abandonment and worthlessness, which is, you know, a space I teach in. But let's say I have a client who, and this is, I'm using this because it's common, the story, I can't lose weight, I can't lose weight, I can't lose weight. Now, this is someone I've seen over the last 2 years, lose weight, gain weight, lose weight, gain weight. So it's important to remember that we build our world with our words. And so I say to her, well, hang on a second, is that true that you can't lose weight? Because I've seen you lose a lot of weight. She's like, oh, well, of course I can lose the weight, Marina, I just can't keep the weight off. And then I'm like, yeah, so you're actually a genius at losing weight. She's like, yeah, actually I am a genius at losing weight. But then we talk more and we do more work in other spaces. And then of course she realizes that she has the belief that if she is the body shape she wants to be and the weight, quote unquote, that she wants to be. So the rule in her head is, when I love my outsides, that's when I'll find my life partner, right? So she now has another rule that I can only find my life soulmate when I'm a certain body type. We all have rules like this. When I'm rich enough, this happens, or when I'm skinny enough, this will happen, or when I'm whatever, insert blank, right? So then she has rule, I need to lose the weight. When I lose the weight, I'm going to find my life partner. Now, hiding right deep down here, of the 3 fears, her primary fear is abandonment. So remember, the way that you most stay alive is to never experience that which you code as unsurvivable. It's like pulling out your IV, your life force. So if I am abandoned by someone I really love, she's coded that as unsurvivable. So she will do everything in her power to never experience that. So now we see the stack. She can't find a relationship is the story. She can't lose weight is the story. But she's got multiple rules in the back of her mind that say, when I lose the weight, I'll meet the man that will be my absolute love of my life. But the thing she's most afraid of ever occurring is being left by someone she loves. So she'll never lose the weight to never meet the person. So what we actually need to deal with is not how to lose weight. That's science. We can all do that, right? You know, and it's not meeting people, because there's lots of people on the planet. The real thing we need to deal with is her fear of being left by somebody. If she can come to peace and bring that back into wholeness and be with herself truly and wholly, so that she does not need to fear another leaving her, if she can come to that space, then the weight will just fall off. There will literally be no block to it. The connections will just occur. And of course, you'll have to learn other things, because there's other rules down the line. But that's a great example how, you know, whether it's sex, well, we have codes. Good girls don't have sex, you know, only this kind of girl has sex. Or I know for myself, sharing openly, when I was in my masculine, sex was great, but it was very much a take. You get an orgasm, I get an orgasm. And then after my awakening and really bringing back in the part of my whole womanhood, which I have 3 elements to that, but the goddess part was the part that I had never really allowed to be present. Gypsy and Queen was super strong for me. But when I allowed my goddess to be present, that was the first time that I started to have multiple orgasms and really relate to sex very differently. And so this is my point. All these inner codings, that affects our physiology. Literally, my body started doing different things. When I was in my masculine, I had polycystic ovaries. You know, I literally didn't even release an egg, because I was saying, be like a man. Releasing an egg is the most feminine thing we can do. So we need to, these symptoms are telling a story, all of them. Whether it's adrenal fatigue, whether it's, you know, a bloated belly or diarrhea, or whether it's the money not coming in, you are so powerful that you are creating that based on this inner coding. So we can waste time out there, or we can just go in and get it done and allow life to come at us in its fullest and wholest form.
I love that. I would love to, I really want to bring just the topic of sex to a call, because I feel like so many women are really disconnected in that.
So much.
And I don't think you can truly experience your best, happiest, most passionate, inspired life without really embracing that side of ourselves. I think it's so important to feel free in that area as well. So maybe that's something we can do at a later date, is dive into that more. The other thing that you made me think of actually when you were talking about that woman that you were coaching, my ex-partner Adam, most of my community know Adam because we've worked together. He's an amazing man, and we just were misaligned at the end of the road, and we just weren't bringing out the best in each other anymore. But I found it so hard to let go because of the fear, I guess, of, because I had these beliefs and frameworks about, you know, what a relationship should look like, how it should always be together. Like, I had so many beliefs and frameworks, even, like, you know, even though we weren't really working.
It's important. Yeah. I was just, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was going to say, I can relate completely. 17-year relationship with my best friend. We were in business together, parents together, we hung out together. He's the funniest guy I know, super witty. But, and this is where I love to teach fears, because we all talk about love languages, but what we don't realize is all of our behavior is actually being exhibited by our core, what I call the paw print of fear. So powerlessness, worthlessness, or abandonment. And we will have one that is strongest. And particularly in relationship, this is critical, because I was running powerlessness, which is the outcome is important. It's got to get done. If it needs to get done, I'll do it. And then my ex-partner, my husband and the father of my children, was running worthlessness. So, you know, their greatest fear is that they'll be worth less in the eyes of another if they don't perform. So what they end up getting is almost like an anxiety of doing anything, because if they do it wrong, this is at the end of the road, like when it's really grown. We had 17 years to grow our fears in this direction. So at the end of the day, it was like, I didn't feel like I could be supported by him at all. And he felt like terrified, because he kept kind of going, well, you're better at that, so you do it. And I was like, okay. And then I'm like, well, okay. And he just felt, you know, I didn't even mean to at the time take away his sense of power or worth. And I'm sure he didn't mean to make me feel like he wasn't there to support me. Compatibility wise, we never fought. It was a dream of a relationship it was the relationship everyone wanted looking at it. And yet we were feeding each other's fears to the point where I was so in my masculine and he wasn't getting to be a man, really. There's polarity. There's so many things at play, right? And then the breaking open of that allowed him to go and be a man inside of a relationship with a different energy, and allowed me to literally spiral into a whole web of things, which included punishing myself. And I want to mention this because you said you had rules about relationships. So did I. My parents have been married 45 years. I was going to get married once. That's the deal. That's how I roll. You know, this is my inner coding.
And I was focused on that rather than what was actually happening in my life. I was focused on, oh, but we're going to be together forever.
Exactly. Same with me. You know, for me, it was like, well, I don't even need to question this because it's done. We're solid. I love you. And so the thing is I think at the end of my marriage, you know, I loved my husband, but I didn't respect him. And I think in truth, because he was really only seeing a male, not a woman, he respected me, but he didn't love me, because I wasn't really open and softened in that way. And, you know, we talk very openly about what happened in our relationship and the ways that we allowed it to spiral. And I do actually believe, because I do a lot of relationship coaching, that two conscious people, even in a state of, you know, disconnection, can come back if they're both willing to do the work. Yet for us, it had to happen the way it happened, and I'm grateful that it did. But straight after the split, I went into the very first time, this is in my mid-30s, Kira. So I raised this because this wasn't late teens where lots of people fall into it. I developed an eating disorder in my mid-30s after years of teaching nutrition and health and gut health and knowing better. Suddenly I started looking for comfort and connection in food, because my mom's Russian and food equals love, of course, you know, so there's love and connection. But because I also had values, so this is where it all interweaves. It's no fingerprint of your inner stuff is the same as anyone else's. It's unique to you. But because I had a business to run and I'm a fitness professional and people were looking for me for health and wellness, I also couldn't look the size of a house, even though I was eating like the size of a house. So it ended up being a binge and a purge. I ended up with bulimia, which was because, well, I can't have all this comfort food in there because that's unprofessional, get it out. And I hate vomiting, you know, all the things. So this also, this comforting survival behavior that gave me, you know, support at a moment in time when I needed it, was also a form of punishment. Because see, you broke the rule. You weren't perfect. You lost your family. Now your kids are going to go 50-50. And so actually coming to a space of forgiveness with yourself and coming to actually unpin those rules and go, you know what, it's actually okay if it turns out like this, If we don't do that, we do beat on ourselves. And that can take many forms. It doesn't have to be eating disorders. It could be not allowing yourself a new partner that loves you, not allowing wealth in, just not allowing yourself to feel happy because you think you don't deserve it. Like it's a deep well, but it's worth diving into.
It is worth it. And that's another thing, you know, I know you're going to touch on is, you know, what the gifts are that come out of these hurdles. And, you know, for me, definitely the gifts are just that flowing flexibility. I feel I think when you can release attachment to outcome in life and just let go and trust, life is just a lot more enjoyable. And it doesn't mean that you don't have vision and purpose and goals and that you're working towards, you know, things that you really desire, but it's also having attachment, releasing attachment to what it must look like. And I just feel so much ease now looking into my future. I'm unattached to exactly what it looks like. You know, I have been dating this year, and I think because I went from being so scared and to face my biggest fear of being a single mom. I call it independent mom because I think it's a lot more empowering. But you know, that fear of being alone, and within a year I've just come full circle to loving my own company, trusting myself, releasing attachment, not being scared to just walk away from what doesn't serve me, you know, not needing. I don't need someone by my side. Desire and need are two different things. Yeah. And so all of these gifts have come from that one giant hurdle that I faced last year. And now I'm in this space that I've never felt so much internal freedom and peace and joy. And so I wouldn't change a thing. So what would you say on that piece of just, you know, what those hurdles, because often it's the lowest of lows that bring about the greatest transformations in our life?
Yes. Firstly, the thing I want to say is just how much joy I get in my cells hearing that from you. You know, like I work with so many people.
I surprised, you know, 5 years ago, there's zero chance I could have even imagined myself to be mentally in the space that I am now. And, you know, there's coaches and there's people that I can give a lot of thanks to that have helped me come to that space.
Yes. And you sought them out and you unfolded willingly into that space. So, you know, just as we stop looking externally for the validations and applause and approval of others, which is the biggest part of the self-sovereignty piece, equally, it's okay to go, you know what? Yes, I got help, but I had to ask for that. That took bravery and vulnerability. And I did the work. You know, I got uncomfortable with myself. So like, I'm just as a woman to a woman who's also been there, I just wanted to say, I see you and I feel that. And my greatest hope is that everyone gets to experience that shedding of the stories and that ripping up of the old rules and going, you know what, it looks totally different to what I thought it would. And the way I describe this in a lot of my programs is like letting go of the plan for the path. Because really what the hurdles are, the way I view this now, and, you know, I know Marianne Williamson also speaks of it like this, that the obstacles or the red flags or literally the flaming hurdles of like hurt, what they really are is the universe coming and saying, hey, I've got another opportunity for you. You know, you can unfold this back to light. You can unfold this back to flow. Or you can just forge your way through it and keep going and make it work and be powerful. And, you know, I did that many times. I was really good at forging through. And so, you know, as the old story goes, the universe and, you know, whatever you believe, source, it is absolutely working for us. So it's just going to go, okay, you didn't get that message. Let me give you a slightly bigger one. Let me give you a slightly bigger one. So, you know, people like us who had to get the entire rug ripped out from under us was probably just because we were so good at pushing through, you know, which is also...
You're such a visionary, and I started really cultivating a big vision for the impact I wanted to make in the world. And I'm making such a bigger impact because I went through that. And so there's a part of me that knows that I kind of asked for it. I didn't know it was going to look that way.
Your soul is always asking for it.
The universe just delivered it in a different way than I was expecting.
Always in a different way. I actually, one day when I get to the universe, I will sit down and say, why? Hey, listen up. Why? Because you don't get to choose how it shows up. But if you hold, and this is the value of, you know, a lot of the programs I teach, like Dream Builder, it's like higher visioning stuff. And when we don't like what we've got, we need to vision higher. And from that place and that energy, we get to come back, because we can't solve a problem from the level it was created at, right? But the universe, so to come really and have this land for people is whatever the hurdle that's repeating, the universe is just being so patient with you. It's going, here, try again. Here, try again. So instead of doing what you normally do, which is potentially push through or say the things or say no or say yes, whatever it is, right? Like, oh, I don't need the help. do the friggin' opposite. Or allow, otherwise the universe is going to get a bigger message and it's going to start smacking you on the head, particularly for those souls who are, in my opinion, lucky enough, although it doesn't feel it at the time, to be awakened. Because not everyone is. There are lots of people out on their journey in life, but I know that we're talking to an audience of people on the path of awakeness because they won't be tuned in. You can't hear this frequency if you're going to stay asleep in this lifetime. You're not on, these kinds of, you're not following leaders like Kira if you're wanting to stay asleep. There is a part of your soul that is calling you forward and calling you forward. So the hurdle is not a goddamn hurdle. The hurdle is a big brass door saying, stick with me, come here, see what's here for you. It's like a red flag saying, look down here, because down here is the gold. Down here is where you get to unfold shadow into light, because there is no such thing as shadow. I mean, there is, but it's in us, but not of us, which means everything. All of the eating disorders, all of the addictions are Source's way of saying, dig down here and unfold it back to light. And that's what we get. When we do the work, we actually just get more love, more bliss, more acceptance, more celebration, more bliss. Because you've stopped fighting yourself, you've stopped wronging yourself, and you've stopped wronging everyone else. So there's no resistance, which is why your mission has gotten bigger, right? Because now more of your life force can come through and flow with ease and grace because you aren't blocking it. You got rid of the boulders. So that big boulder that I'm using a million different analogies, but whatever floats your boat, whether it's, the flag or the rock, just do the work to move it, because the other side of that is actually more ease.
Absolutely.
I rant, sorry.
No, I love it. I love for you because you keep talking about wholeness and self-sovereignty, and it's the first time on this call we've had that kind of language. So I'd love for you maybe just to delve into more about what that means to you.
Absolutely. I would so love to. I'm actually writing, a book on this topic right now. And there's really two things, but I will say this, that sovereignty is your sovereign right to decree and rule your space, which is your body, your mind, your spirit, your soul, as the ruler. In co-creation, yes, with source energy, because what that means by co-creation is, let's take a literal example of sovereignty. Say you got given, you're like sovereign ruler of an actual piece of land, like Australia. Well, you're in co-creation because what's on that land is on that land. Like it's what is. So is there waterfalls? Is there deserts? Is there lush green valleys? Are there beaches? So the same with me, do I have different elements? Sure. Now, do I have the same elements as potentially, say, New Zealand? No. Well, their sovereign land looks slightly different. It's got more of these things or less of these things. But if Australia tried to be New Zealand, which is what we see happening in a world full of competition and comparison, or if New Zealand tried to be Australian, I've lived in both countries, so I don't get into this debate, but I know there's lots of people going, they try to be us. But so perhaps a bad analogy, but you get my point, is like, in trying to make one land another land, we literally lose the natural resources, the natural beauty, and the entire reason to even go to that land, to travel to that land, to bring that land into the whole world and go, here's my magic, here's what I can offer. Come visit here if you love deserts, or come visit here if you love lush rainforests. But we see this even, in the real material, of cutting down all the things and building up all the same stuff. Now, anywhere you go in the world, it's the same shit. When we travel, it's the same stuff. And so that's what we're seeing, this homogenization of our sovereign souls. And my work in the world is to have you live your light, which is different to anyone else's, and to magnify your more, which you can only get aware of and access by going inwards. Now, the wholeness piece is the first step of that, because until I actually get clear on what's in my bloody land, I can't authentically and with ease and grace come to the world and say, hey, I'm a sovereign ruler of this land and this is everything that's in it. So the tool that I created a couple of years ago for women was one that I needed for myself. So as I went through the divorce and the unraveling, I kind of realized, even with looking at my wardrobe, I had, we're all split personalities. We're schizophrenic, and we need to be okay with it. I like to say we're like a contradiction in terms, and that particularly for women is literally our gift. We get to say one thing one day and literally decide that we want the other thing the next day. It's beautiful. The chaos of us is so magnificent, right? And yet we think we need to be one thing in the world. Oh, what a pity. So for me, this is where these elements of the gypsy, the goddess, and the queen came up. So just to really bring this into a tight bubble, because it might be relevant for some listeners, the gypsy is the part of us that is pre-rules. It's the little rebel that runs around and gets to explore and then come back home and feel safe and go, Mama, did you see where I went? And then go again and come back. And so in that phase, developmentally, but also experientially, we get to go, I'm safe with and I'm safe alone. So it's where we develop independence, but play. We get to play because we're not attached to, do I need to be productive? No, I just explore for the joy of it. So it's very much a joy energy. It's a very like childlike juiciness. Then there's the goddess phase of the woman. Now, so if play is the kind of mouthpiece of gypsy, then for goddess, it's pleasure. And so not pleasure as in everyone goes, oh, sex, we're going to talk about sex. Yes. And it's pleasure as in the flow of life force. So, you know, the goddess is the controller of flow, which is where for me, I was like dormant in my goddess because I was good at giving. A lot of us are taught goddess energy is give. You got to provide. You got to be the mother, the caretaker. But the thing I work with a lot of women around is receiving. So opening up that flow and going, not just support, but this is where I was able to access more orgasms because that sex is the deepest level of physical receptivity for a woman. And so goddess is it's community and this channel of flow. Can I give out and can I take in, and can I give out and can I take in? And the reason so many women are depleted, literally empty vessels trying to give more, is because we've malaligned our goddess because we think it's got something to do with sin and sex and all the things, you know, or strong women or selfishness. And it's crazy. Like all the language we have to muck us up in that space is ridiculous. And then the third element is the queen. So if we take all of these elements and put them inside this sovereign space, the queen is the one that goes, I know what the goddess needs and wants. I know what the gypsy needs and wants. I know what all of my parts, every single part, the part that's selfish, the part that's giving, the part that's playful, the part that's serious, the part that's all of it. And I'm going to be a voice and a mouthpiece for all of them, but that doesn't mean they all get what they want all the time. Because as a collective, we're moving in this direction. So queen holds purpose. She's the one that goes, this is where we're going. And we may not want to do it, but right now it's head down, tail up, and we're working. So she is in what's in the best interest of all parts. Whereas, you know, we might want to be derailed and you know, by one or any of our parts, but she's the one that pulls us back together. And in embodied, so each of these has shadow energies. We can be a goddess in shadow, which is manipulative, using wiles, you know, holding back, turning down love, all of those things. And we can also be a gypsy in a shadow, stubborn. I'm not going to learn. Don't tell me what to do. I don't want to hear it. Stomp your feet, you know. And we can also be a queen in shadow, which I was for a long time. I've always had a strong queen, but for a long time it was like, I'll do it, do as I say, not empowering people, you know, not enrolling people, not working collaboratively, you know, just really like a dictatorship. But the one thing I was always solid in was gypsy, because I'm a wanderer, I'm a free spirit, and if it's not fun, I'm kind of not into it, you know. So even in the workplace, I think having that kind of shadow queen got played out and relaxed a bit by my gypsy, who was like, yeah, let's have a good time, everyone. But goddess was the one I had to crack the hell open. Now, everyone's different. I work with women who are super corporate and they don't know how to like have fun. They don't know how to be silly. They've made that wrong. And so the wholeness is going, what's in here? And I've talked for a while, so I'll be quiet. But I do have a point I wanted to talk about when we talk about being triggered by comparison. So if you want to go there, I will. But otherwise, I'll
No, I like everything that you've talked about. I think it's creating awareness of those things, like those three parts of yourself. Like it's being aware and then consciously cultivating more of what you need, of what serves different environments and different circumstances. And the other, you know, you say a lot of corporate, they lose that sense of fun. One of the things that I speak a lot on this channel about is when you become a mother, a lot of women lose fun, flexibility, and freedom, which is all very feminine qualities, which are the most attractive qualities to our partners. And they're the first ones to go when we become mums. And it's becoming aware of that and consciously cultivating them back, because they are a part of who you are. Yes. And I enjoy myself more when I'm cultivating those, let alone people around me.
Your kids enjoy you more. Yeah. So this is the whole piece. And I'm so glad you raised that, because we have this alchemy inside of us that we've literally wronged along the way, right? Well, yeah. So being silly is not appropriate at school. And actually when I tried to be a leader, it got shut down. So some people get their queen shut down. Some people don't get their voice. They're like, well, I'm just a goddess. I'm just here for guys to want to have sex with me. I have so many clients that's their story. And every single one impinges our wholeness. It's not, one is not better than the other. We want the fullest expression. But then as we move further in life, as you say, we get titles, we get roles, and we go, oh, well, a mum looks like, and this is where the subconscious coding is, a mum needs to be selfless. She needs to put herself last. And then we have a modern coding. It's like, well, she shouldn't be worried about her body. And now we have even more in this super like front edge of media, diet culture is bad. And body love is good, and I agree, and a woman still has a right to want to exercise, and she still has a right. So when we get to bring all these parts back, it means that we can flow through those channels, not feel shut down, but actually feel more open. And sometimes it is appropriate. There are times where my gypsy bees quiet and my queen, my goddess bees quiet, and I'm like, queen, I'm like, it's going to be like this, do it like that. And that's how it is. And every other part is going, yes, thank you. That's perfect in this moment. But if I take that energy and I apply it to every other space, whoa, that's going to kill the joy in my life. So you're 1,000% right. It's allowing those elements to wash in and out and let them be there because they are there. You're not faking it. They are real elements of you. They're going to show up differently in you than they do in me. That's fine.
So can we bring some practicality? Because okay, we've talked beautifully about programming and understanding the parts of yourself. It all comes back to awareness, I think, is the first step, because once you have awareness, then you can create change, or then you can expand yourself. So what are your practical tips for the people listening? Okay, what's the next step now that they understand this?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. First step in any change pattern is awareness. And so the things that I would, if I was working with someone, most people have an issue, that's why they start looking, right? So we want to get really clear on where in my life am I experiencing a lack of flow? So it's like literally just this week, what everyone listening could do is go, where is the thing that I'm making a persistent complaint like it's not changeable? Yeah. You know, oh, this is always happening. It could be something as simple as I'm always running late. Okay, well, what do we run about time? What do we run about, our time management? What are we putting as a priority that's leading us to be late? It could be, oh, they're not supportive, or they're always talking about me, or they never invite me. So something that you say 3 times in this week, there's a pattern there. And it's just like any muscle. If we start to learn to flex it, so you can look at what you're saying 3 times if you're an auditory person, or if you're a kinesthetic person. My biggest suggestion would be, what is the feeling? We can all do it right now. What is the feeling that comes up for you multiple times in a week that you're very good at experiencing, but you wish you didn't experience so much? Whether that's anger, or whether that's jealousy, or whether that's you don't even give it a voice, but it's this kind of thing in your body where you want to scream. So that kind of resistant energy that's coming up that we have made wrong in our society, it's coming up for a reason. So those stories are on repeat for a reason, and this resistance in your physicality is coming up for a reason. Some of you may not even be aware of the physicality. It might be actually a disease in your body. Oh, my stomach feels all churny. Okay, so go in and have a conversation with that emotion or that energy. What is it that I'm not allowing to be expressed? What have I made wrong? Just go and look for what you've made wrong, because it's our addiction to what we're making right that's having this play out. And don't be afraid to do that, because if you actually let it have its voice, I do this with young children, teens, everyone can do it. Whatever is angry or resistant or sad, let it have the microphone and ask it, how and why is this in my highest good? What are you actually wanting me to see here? Literally like you're talking to something, but it's a part of you. And then it'll just tell you. It will straight up just tell you, oh, well, I'm anxious because, I've done this with my daughter, really young. She went through an anxiety, and, people are going to come in and kill me. Anyone who's a mother of kids of a certain age knows this phase. Okay, well, why do we run to anxiety? And she's like, well, because then I'm going to be scared. What happens when I'm scared? Well, then I cry. What happens when I cry? Well, then mum comes. What happens when mum comes? Well, then I get comforted and I feel safe. So I'm running anxiety to feel safe. It's crazy, but this is when we actually sit with simple questions. It's not as hard as we make it out.
When you break it down, you actually see the absurdity quite often.
But also the beauty of the absurdity, because it's always a loving act, which is why I keep saying we just need to love ourselves more effectively. And what I would say to someone who's really in struggle, and I feel you, I have been there, the biggest and best thing you could do is go and get a coach or get help. And the reason I say that, it doesn't have to be with me, and it doesn't have to be with Kira, and please don't make it a friend, because they can't coach you. They're in your system. They're part of it. Don't even use your partner. Go to a third party, because sometimes we are so close. But when someone else asks you a question and you have to find an answer, stuff will come up that you previously would just filter or edify or push back down. And, I've had people, separate kind of conversation, who are like, I'm not clear on my purpose, Marina. I don't know what it is. I'm so quote unquote confused, which is another safety mechanism, right? inside of 10 minutes. I've never had someone who's confused about their purpose inside a coaching session remain confused. It is very clear what they want to do. They just needed the right questions asked and the space held. So this is the benefit of having a coach, is they allow a container to open. And a coach in any realm, you know, even a personal training coach, right? We get expanded because they see something and they hold space for more of us to be present.
I think one of the best parts of the coaching that I had after the breakup was someone who, well, actually I have two coaches in my life, both men, and they're both very, they don't hold back. They're brutal at times in sharing with me, you know, how I'm being or how I'm behaving. And sometimes we can be so blind, or obviously our blind spots are called that for a reason, but also being willing to be called on your shit, you know. And I spent a couple of months, and not everyone's ready for it. I really wanted dramatic change. I was really ready for it because I was sick of my own stuff. And so I really needed someone strong enough who was going to call me out on it and force me to really face that. And on the other side of that is just that self-acceptance now, because I've faced it and I've acknowledged that that is a part of who I am. It's a part of who we all are, and I don't judge it anymore. But yeah, I don't know where I would be without those people helping me move through this year. I couldn't recommend it enough.
Yes. And the step that led to that was you going and seeking them. So that's
absolutely.
If someone wants to change, if you're really feeling stuck, you are not alone. These patterns, they're insidious and they're deep, but they're actually simple in their processing. And so get a coach and step into that frame. And, you know, not all coaches will yell at you, and some will, but what they'll do is a good coach, you know, Kira probably needed to be yelled at because that's what shook her out of
it. He yelled at me. He just,
you know what I mean? Like, he was really
very clearly showed me the parts of myself that I wasn't willing to look at.
The coach is just going to hold a mirror up and you're literally going to see stuff you didn't see before.
Yeah.
It's seeing yourself for the first
time. The coach won't back down in the moments where they know you need to see it, but you're refusing to look.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes. No.
And so we're coming up, we've got 5 minutes. So I know that you might want to circle back. Is there any other things that you would love to share today?
I just actually, something that came to me just then, because I know not all of your listeners are people that would be new to doing this work. And I have, you know, I actually coach coaches. So I train, I do a lot of work to the public, but I also train people in coaching, if that makes sense, a certification program.
Yeah.
And so what I mean by that is I work with people, you know, one-on-one and in group facilitation, but also over a long extended period. And I know a lot of your listeners are on the journey and they're growing themselves in whatever space and place in their lives. And I'd love to see more of us really let go of this concept that, well, I've done that, so why am I still working on it? It mustn't be working. And the best analogy is, like, you can get to the top of a cliff and everyone around you can say, it's safe to jump, it's safe to jump. And you can stand there terrified forever and never jump. But then even after you do jump and you realize it's safe, it is still normal to get back up to the top. Or first of all, to not want to jump again, because you might be like, I did it, I don't want to do it again. But if you do go back up, it's still normal to get the leg shakes again and go, I don't know. And then to have it, and the reason I share that as a metaphor is it's a muscle. It's all a muscle. So you might have an awareness and you might make a shift. And then you're like, oh, I've gone backwards. I've mucked it up. And just like your body, we train the bicep, but it doesn't stay strong unless we keep training it. So being in the work means loving yourself when you're at the edge and you want to back down. It's like, okay, so today we didn't jump. That's all right. Can you love yourself in that process so that tomorrow you go back up there and jump again? Because the last thing we want to do is go back into the old patterns of, it's got to be like this, it's got to be like that. It's safe there. You've survived. Based on history, 100% of your days, it's worked. But if you want to create new realities, you need to create new ways of being, new belief structures. And that takes a little bit of time. It can happen fast in the coding, but the neural strengthening of it is a muscular process. And I wish more people really understood that, because they'd be kinder to themselves and actually enjoy the journey more. You'd be like, oh yeah, I didn't nail it today. Sweet. But I'm still on my path. You know, you'd be less judgmental of yourself. So that's something I wanted to say. Other than that, I don't know. Do we have any comments come through? Is there anything you wanted us to touch on?
Everyone was just kind of sharing how much they're enjoying it. So Yeah, and I would add to that as well. Like, I'm not sure that I don't know that your triggers ever actually go away. You just get better and better, and not all the time. I still have my triggers still flare up from time to time, but you get better at how you respond to them.
And Kira, actually, this is how I'd like to circle it back around. That is 1,000% correct. It is an illusion to say that that trigger is gone. If that trigger is gone, you're not a human anymore. Because remember, as the animal, no, truly, as the animal, we get coded with I need to be in belonging, I need to be right, and I need to believe I'm not good enough so that I keep striving for your love and affection to stay alive in this world. So that's there, that's present. Can we do it in a way that's effective and sovereign and whole and loving? Or are we going to go back to old patterns where it's, can you come and get me? Can you save me? And we go external again. We need to be internally wired and sovereign and do the work, because it's never going to go, but it doesn't have to be the rod that breaks your back, and it doesn't have to be the thing that holds you down. You can actually invert it and use it for your ascension, and you can use it to also then, of course, invite other people into that experience, which is really what, when one person awakens into their wholeness, they do. They give permission, which is what you do so beautifully in the world. You give permission. You own the things that you've struggled with, and you say, and yet I'm still awesome. I'm this and I'm that.
Yeah.
You know, I've had a divorce and I'm not a broken woman.
Yeah, and I think as women, it's so powerful, and I think one of the greatest gifts that we can give our family, our children, is to do the work ourselves, so that we can pass on that gift for our children to know that they're enough, and so that we're not passing on our trauma to them.
So I didn't mention it, but it's funny you say that. So one of the areas that I like highly specialized in and trained in is family constellations and family systems. So we do generationally hold stuff from 7 generations, and we do stand at the forefront of all of our ancestors, which means stuff you're dealing with on a cycle of similarity and sabotage or repeat is quite likely not even yours. Not all audiences are down to hear this kind of stuff straight away, but we do need to remember this is science. It's a quantum world we live in, and so just as you got the blue eyes and the brown hair, quite likely you got innate, desires for security. If your family came from poverty or starvation, you might be a little more wired than the normal person to have stuff. And other people around you might be like, why are you so needy? Why not be more generous? But it's wired in you, and so doing the work on yourself actually serves those who came before you, because they went through their suffering so that you didn't have to. They don't want you to repeat their patterns. No family system wants that. Just as you as a mother and me as a mother and every parent on the planet definitely doesn't want to give our shit to our kids. But their journey's their journey. Us doing the work definitely lightens their load 1,000%.
I love that. Well, we're right on time. Thank you so much for sharing your light and your wisdom with us today. So just in case you guys have just tuned in, they can follow you at I am Marina Perry.
I am Marina Perry. Yeah, on Instagram. That's generally where I hang out.
Okay, more so than Facebook?
Yes. Yeah. You know what? I'm an older person, which means that I didn't grow up on social media. So to be honest, except that I need it for work, I would probably not be there. So I'm on there.
Great content, add value content on Instagram though. So definitely everyone.
Yes. Let's be friends on Instagram. But I like to see people and be with them in a room, and even like this, real talking. I love it. It lights me up. Kira, thank you so much for having me and for what you do in the world. Honestly, you're such a bright light, and you do make such a difference. And I know you already know that, but I wanted to thank you personally for having me on.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Well, I look forward to having you again, hopefully in the future. Sorry?
To talk about sex.
Yes, we should do that. I really have been wanting to bring that topic, because I feel like, there's just, it kind of gets weaved in a little bit into every conversation, and I feel like we really need to shine a light on it.
Let's go there.
Let us know in the comments, ladies, what you think about that. All right, have an amazing day, everyone. Thank you so much, Marina, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye, everyone. Thanks,
Bye.
Kate.